Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Is Islam really a religion of peace? President Obama has said it is, as has President Bush, even as violent jihadis carry out terror attacks in the name of Islam.
So who's right? Well, as George Thomas reports, it's not just about fears of terrorism. Surveys show hundreds of millions of Muslims hold radical views about dominating the world.
With each new terrorist attack, the debate over the true nature of Islam intensifies.
Let's be clear, though. Islam is not our adversary.
This is a civilizational struggle between the values of freedom and liberty and radical Islamic terror.
Those on the left defend Islam, calling it a religion of peace.
Muslims are peaceful and tolerant people and have nothing whatsoever to do with terrorism.
Those on the right want to stop the flow of Muslims to the U.S., concerned about jihadists sneaking in among masses of refugees.
What happened in Paris could happen here. There is no middle ground.
But experts say there's also a much bigger debate.
When there is a disease or a virus, it can't be treated unless you identify the problem. So we have to call it what it is, and it is violent, radical, extremist Islamism.
For over 20 years, Raheel Raza, a Sunni Muslim, has dedicated her life to speaking out against what she calls the rising threat of radical Islam.
This is not an easy topic to discuss.
In her latest project, By the Numbers, the untold story of Muslim opinions and demographics, Raza warns that Islam presents a great threat.
In light of the fact that most of the terrorism in the world today involves Muslims in one way or another, and because it directly affects our lives and security, I think that we need to be able to have an open, honest, and fact-based conversation about that.
Produced by the Clarion Project, Raza describes so-called spheres of radicalization. At the core is what she calls violent jihadists like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and Boko Haram.
These are the jihadists who murder people in San Bernardino, Texas, Paris, London, Delhi, Jerusalem, Ottawa, Madrid, Nairobi.
A second sphere, Raza says, are those who support jihadist goals but not their methods. For example, while they push for an Islamic takeover, they do so through democratic methods.
Islamists want many of the same things as the jihadists, it's just that their tactics differ.
She points to the large percentage of Egyptians who supported the Muslim Brotherhood, or the Palestinians who voted to give political power to the terrorist group Hamas.
So instead of engaging in terror themselves, they use the political and cultural system to further their aims.
The third sphere, and the largest of them all, is what Raza also calls the most disturbing, the fundamentalists.
The Muslims in this circle are certainly not like ISIS, and they're not working to overthrow governments like the Muslim Brotherhood. But they do hold beliefs and practices that no doubt will seem radical to you and me.
She points to an exhaustive Pew Research project in 2013 that interviewed thousands of Muslims across 39 countries. In the survey, large numbers of Muslims, representing millions of people, thought it was justifiable to execute people who converted away from Islam and to murder women who dishonor the family.
These studies paint a picture of an Islamic world that is increasingly out of step with the modern world.
In the same survey, alarming numbers of young Muslims in Western countries also supported suicide bombings.
42% of French Muslims, 35% of British Muslims, and 26% of American Muslims believe suicide bombings against non-Muslims can be justified.
And equally shocking, Raza adds, is the large percentage of Muslims who want Sharia law, which calls for stoning of adulterers and chopping off thieves' hands, to be the law of the land.
Of course, not every Muslim believes in these things, but hundreds of millions do. The numbers are right here for all to see.
Raza says if radical Islam is ever to be defeated, an honest conversation must happen about one of the most important issues of our time.
By silencing the debate about radical Islamist beliefs, we abandon our own core beliefs of truth, free speech, and tolerance. and we abandon human rights in favor of political correctness.
Raza says the documentary is meant to start that conversation. George Thomas, CBN News.
We need to be involved in the conversation, involved with questions like, how can Hamas win an election in the Gaza Strip? How can a terrorist group win a popular election? How can the Muslim Brotherhood win an election in Egypt unless there wasn't a strong opinion in that electorate that they would run the country well? We need to look at these numbers. We need to look at what is causing radical jihadists to arise from Islam. What is it about public opinion? What is it about what is being preached in the mosque? How can we get translations of those sermons to better understand why are people being radicalized? The chilling numbers from this, 26% of American Muslims think suicide bombing is okay in some instances. That's a startling fact. If you want more information about this, we've got it for you. It's on cbnnews.com. You can see the full video from the Clarion Project. You can find out more about the Pew Center research that went into that video and how you can be a part of the conversation. So go to cbnnews.com. Terry?